Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AAIM Employers Association, and welcome to This Week at Work.
Welcome to the only show about the workplace that offers you front row seats and a microphone, bringing you practical, timely, and accurate insights so that you can more effectively lead your organization. It's Thursday, February 9th, episode 217. Today, HR tech sounds great. Applicant tracking, automated processes, quantified feedback. But what's the point if our points don't connect and draw lines towards better employee experiences and business outcomes? Join Phil, Bert, and special guest Erin Miley, AAIM's business manager for member and pre-hire services. Erin will help you connect the dots from fragmented data to useful information. And remember to grab the mic anytime. Send us your questions and take the poll now. All this and more on This Week at Work.
All right, welcome back, and thank you all for joining us again. It is Superbowl time, and that is an exciting time for some people. Bert, I got to tell you, it's not exciting for me. I have not been an NFL fan since the Rams left St. Louis. It's a matter of principle for me. It is probably the one game I will watch every year, just because it's more of an event and I go to gatherings and when it's on television. But otherwise, I have zero interest in the NFL as an organization. However, I know many people listening to the program enjoy the NFL. They have favorite teams. I'm so happy that it's a Missouri team. That's always good for us since we serve the state of Missouri along with other states. So I do like that. And when I was younger, I did enjoy the Kansas City Chiefs quite a bit and went to many of their games. They're an awesome football club. Do you have a favorite team in this, Bert?
I'm pulling for the Chiefs as well. Although, Phil, like you, I am just done with the NFL. I can't stand the NFL. They pulled the Cardinals out of St. Louis. They let the Rams walk out of St. Louis, and I, like you, swore off the NFL at that point. Although I did read something the other day. I didn't read the article because, again, I'm not interested in the NFL, but I saw a headline that said, could the Chicago Bears follow the Cardinals from Chicago to St. Louis? So I seriously doubt that would happen, but always interesting that they kind of use St. Louis as the perpetual bridesmaid in these types of situations. I've had it with the NFL.
Yeah, you know what? We'll go with St. Louis City. I'll become a soccer fan and stay a hockey fan. I love the Cardinals.
Yep.
All three are members of ours here at the association, and that's where my heart lies is with our members. And if your team is in the Super Bowl, I'd love to hear who you're pulling for. We'll maybe share some inputs on that. And I think the real question is, does the national anthem go over or under, Bert? That's really the question most people are asking. So not sure with that. I know we all love the commercials and the halftime show. You never know what you might see during the halftime show. So there is some entertainment.
Are you talking about wardrobe malfunctions?
Maybe wardrobe malfunctions. That's probably the most famous halftime show ever, but save some of that. We're going to get into that in full forum. I just know I'm in for the food and ready to have a good time with some friends and family. All right, let me give a quick reminder that we have our Wayfinder event tomorrow. This is our second event. We have over 300 people joining for that event. There'll be more than 200 people in person at the factory in Chesterfield Valley here in St. Louis area. And you can still join either in person or by simulcast. It's going to be a great event. And leading off the morning is going to be yours truly, Bert Garland, representing Ogletree, our major sponsor for the event. Bert, we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, along with a few other great speakers, that being Fred Falker. Many of our members know Fred. He does an excellent job. He's been on TED Talks. He just does a wonderful job when it comes to bringing culture and purpose together. And I think you're going to enjoy what he has to say. And then a fan favorite of the show is Tanya Zion. Tanya will be flying in today as well. to talk a little bit more about engagement with employees, her area of expertise. So please, if you are interested, you don't have too much more time, but make sure you join up and we'll be happy to bring it to you right where you're at. With Feature Group's help, they do a great job in the background, Nick. So I'm guessing you're all ready for this program, Nick?
Oh, yeah. I am prepared, even have the walk-up songs ready to go. And
that's my favorite part of this event is the walk-up songs and the pancakes.
two things that go together, I guess.
Doesn't say much for the speakers, though, huh, Phil?
Hey, well, I get to work with you every day, Bert. You're like a brother to me, so it's becoming that tough love.
All right.
Yeah. So with that, I love pancakes. I love music. The speakers are wonderful, no doubt. That's the reason we have this, but we'll move on. All right, let's introduce today's poll question. So today's poll question is going to use your imagination for a moment. Let's imagine you are integrating the following 10 HR applications. You have excluded one of them. Which one would you exclude? And there's some options there for you: payroll, recruiting, onboarding, time and attendance, scheduling, benefits, expense management, health and safety, employee engagement, talent management, learning and development, and background checks and screening. So you can exclude one. Which one would you exclude? We're just having a little bit of fun with that. It's not to say it's not most important to you. It's just that you would exclude it for whatever reason. All right, Bert, sit back. Are you ready for lawyer?
I'm ready, Phil. Yes,
All right.
Of course.
Nick, let's introduce him.
All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law. Lawyer, you're on the clock.
So first up today, we've got a case out of New Jersey, and I don't really focus on the fact that it's from New Jersey itself, but it just goes to show what cases could be coming down the line for employers. The New Jersey courts held that a business's decision to terminate an employee for quarantining violated New Jersey's whistleblower and anti-retaliation laws. In this particular case, a restaurant employee was terminated after missing several days of work due to exposure to COVID-19 and then subsequently developing COVID-19 symptoms. The employee alleged that his termination from employment violated New Jersey's laws, and basically the court denied the defendant's motion to dismiss that complaint. The court ruled that if the employee reasonably believed he was required to quarantine until his symptoms subsided after being advised by his medical provider pursuant to CDC guidelines, and that his employment was terminated as a result. So the court allowed the case to survive past the motion to dismiss stage. It means it will get litigated. Who knows if it'll go all the way past what's called summary judgment or all the way to trial. But again, for employers, just be careful out there. These COVID cases are coming fast and furious.
Hey, Bert,
Right.
so
Yeah,
Erin Miley, who is our guest today, and I and Brandy and some others, we were doing our tour of roundtables through Missouri or through Illinois and Indiana yesterday, and that question kept coming up and resurfacing, which was, what should we be doing with following COVID protocols now? And the position I'm still taking on that, and you tell me if you have a different position, is we're still following CDC guidelines, and that's our best hope. And if you have any other state or local guidelines, you want to take those into consideration as well. Is there still any other advice from you that you would suggest we consider when it comes to COVID and quarantining and time off?
Yeah, I think that following those guidelines is still probably the best course of action, although I, along with most other attorneys who are advising in this area, are becoming more and more aggressive with our advice as far as getting employees back into the workplace. This case that I mentioned is a little bit different because it does involve an exposure and somebody who actually tested positive for COVID. And so the employee was, claims that that he was fired because he took time off because of COVID. If you're dealing with a termination situation, I would be careful as always. But as far as getting people back into the workplace who have not been exposed or who are not positive for COVID, I've become much more aggressive in my advice.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, go on, lawyer, keep going.
All right, next one I'm going to give you is a couple of new laws that are coming down the pike that everybody needs to be familiar with. The first is called the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. Those of you who've been listening to the program at some point, a couple times actually during the past 217 episodes, I've mentioned the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act and the Pump Act when they were in bills. They were signed into law by President Biden on December 29, 2022, and they go into effect in June. And the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, in a nutshell, basically says that employers are required to offer reasonable accommodations to employees who are expecting, and bars companies from pushing a pregnant worker who seeks an arrangement to help them safely do their job. I'm sorry, I said punishing a pregnant worker who seeks an arrangement to help them safely do their job. So just be very careful with this new law. It's modeled after the Americans with Disabilities Act. It applies to employers who have 15 or more employees. And again, we have to make reasonable accommodations to known limitations relating to pregnancy, childbirth, or other related medical conditions, something that in my experience, most employers were doing anyway for employees. But just keep in mind, this is coming down the pike. Also, there's the Pump Act, P-U-M-P Act. And this one expands workplace protections for lactating employees by requiring employers to provide all employees who are nursing with reasonable time and private space to express breast milk. This act expands upon a 2010 amendment to the Fair Labor Standards Act, which came into effect back in 2010 as part of Obamacare. That required employers to provide lactating employees who are non-exempt under the Fair Labor Standards Act with reasonable break time and a private location other than a bathroom to express milk for 1 year following the birth of a child. This newly passed law expands the right to cover all employees covered by the Fair Labor Standards Act, both exempt and non-exempt. And also, I would say that we would look to the ADA again for kind of some guidance on the interactive process that employers should go through with a lactating employee to determine what's the best way to accommodate the expressing of breast milk while the individual is on the clock. Okay, so a couple new laws coming down the pike. A couple other things I want to chat about real quickly. The EEOC announced its enforcement priorities for the next several years. And this one is really, in my opinion, not much of a surprise. What the EEOC says it's going to be going after the next few years here. And in particular, what they have said is that there, as part of their strategic enforcement plan for 2023 through 2027, they are basically really going to be going after issues that have a broad impact because of the nature and scope of the employment practices addressed, the number of individuals impacted, or the employers or industries affected. A simple way of saying this is that they're really going to be looking at what are called systemic issues within an organization, things that are system-wide that really do impact more people. Trying to think of it in other terms is that the EOC's focus is not going to be as much on bringing claims on behalf of individuals as much as it will be on behalf of bringing claims on groups of individuals who are being subjected to what they consider to be illegal practices. They're also
Bert,
going.
do you think in something like that normally those start as an individual makes a claim for whatever wrongdoing they feel has occurred? Do you think it's the EEOC points them back and says, in something like that, is this systemic? Are there others which actually force people to go back and ask the question or try to rally, coworkers to help support the same issue? Or is it that they just are not going to be as aggressive with the individual claims?
I think that the EEOC, and this has been true, certainly not necessarily as much under the Obama administration, but I think this is somewhat consistent with actually the EEOC under the Trump administration and now under the Biden administration, that the EEOC, they recognize that there's a lot of private lawyers out there who will take these individual claims. And if they're going to be spending their resources, they're going to go after these bigger claims, these systemic type claims. I think when people come in and there's an allegation that sounds more like a class type allegation, the EEOC is not necessarily going to send that employee back into the workplace and to recruit others. But I think the EEOC will take the allegations and say this is a systemic problem.
Yeah, gotcha. All right.
Okay.
There
there are other areas of priority. The next 4 years, they're going to be looking into issues affecting workers who may be unaware of their legal rights or reluctant or unable to exercise their rights. Think of that in terms of people who are immigrants who may not know the laws in this country and are afraid of getting involved with government process because of deportation fears. The EEOC is going to try to make those folks aware of their legal rights. They're also going to be going after issues involving developing areas of the law where the commission, I like this, they say their expertise is particularly valuable. And I think what they're getting at there, and it ties into today's subject with Erin, is employer technology and also particularly artificial intelligence. They'll also be looking at issues involving policies or practices that impede or impair full enforcement of federal discrimination laws. Again, kind of a systemic type issue. And then issues that may be addressed by government action, including enforcement based on the nature of the claim, the relief available, practical or legal impediments to private enforcement, or the commission's access to information, data, and research. And I think they should throw in there, and the commission's access to resources, in other words, money, to bring some of these bigger claims against some of these employers.
Yeah.
That's what I've got for you on the EEOC. Real quickly, I'm just going to touch on the NLRB. Nick, I've asked you to put up a chart. The numbers are out showing elections and unionization in 2022. We've heard a ton, an absolute ton about union organizing the last few years. I've been on the program preaching union organizing over and over and over. Actually, Phil, I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I've given you the answer before. So let's see if you can remember.
Okay.
What is the current percentage of the private sector workforce in the United States that belongs to a union? See if you can get it close.
The private sector, if I remember correct, was it like 4.5%?
You're actually a little low. People usually are way over, so you're close. Last year in 2021, it was 6.1%, and last year it actually ticked down again. It is now 6.6% of the private sector workforce. So despite all the efforts for unions to organize, the numbers of union employees continue to decline in this country. But there are two unions that have had some pretty marked success, and you can see that on the chart here. And in particular, the Service Employees International Union, and then to a lesser extent, the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, they have had a ton of elections, especially the SEIU. They went from roughly 100 elections in 2021 to almost 500 elections in 2022, and they're winning about 75% of those elections. And this is the union that's really targeting the restaurant and retail sector and hospitality sector, and they have had some dramatic success. You think of all of the Starbucks campaigns and the Apple campaigns and the Amazon campaigns, all of those. This is largely tied to the SEIU. So they're doing their best.
Significant difference looking at your chart here over the others, the activity and time spent on organizing there. And in many cases, for very, very small groups of employees. It's not like you're trying to organize a factory of 1,000 people. I mean, some of these a union or a Starbucks store, maybe they only have 30 employees or less, in total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a huge change in the focus on what they're going after. Really quite shocking. And then the last one, Phil, is a bonus topic here. The Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh, who was kind of a controversial pick when Biden picked him. He did get confirmed to head the Department of Labor, but he is actually leaving the Department of Labor, and he is now going to be sort of returning to his roots, which is unions. And he is going to be the head of the National Hockey League Players Association union. So he's leaving governmental service, going back into the private sector for the National Hockey League, the players.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that and their next upcoming contract. Maybe they're doing a little staging and getting ready for a tough negotiation when their contract is up. And I'm not familiar with when it is up, but there might be something behind that move. We'll keep an eye on it and keep rooting for our Blues. All right. Great job there, Lawyer on the Clock. Let's move straight into Filbert's Forum. And we got some good stuff as it relates to the Super Bowl.
You've just entered Filbert's Forum, where we peel the onion back and take a lighter look at the workplace.
All right, Bert. So we got some things to look at here for Filbert's Forum. First, at the Super Bowl, you have bets. You're always placing bets at the Super Bowl. We play all kinds of games. The first one is, will there be a wardrobe malfunction during the halftime show? That's the Super Bowl bet. The workplace equivalent bet for that is, how casual will Sally take Casual Friday? So that's the equivalent from the Super Bowl bet to the workplace bet. We have a second one here. I like this one. It's another Super Bowl bet compared to a workplace bet, and that is, will words be forgotten or omitted during the national anthem? And that is always amazing to me that happens. I can't imagine. I mean, you know the song, you practice the song, and you forget the words. But the equivalent to that is when you're singing happy birthday to everyone, and we all use a different name when we sing happy birthday to Bert, or I think about my mom, it's to Mom, to Nana, to Nanny, to Angie, whatever, all it is. It's all these different names that get shouted out at one time. And then we have another one here. It's another Super Bowl bet. How many hot dogs will be sold at the game? And the equivalent to that is, how many minutes will Mary's homemade cookies last before being completely devoured? And I'm not sure about those cookies now that marijuana is legal in 2 of our 3 main states, that being Missouri and Illinois. So those cookies might go faster than normal this year. And my favorite one, wait for it now, Bert. All right. This is the setup from this morning. The opening coin toss, heads or tails, is always a very popular bet. And the equivalent to that is, will Bert clock in on time or not? And for those listening, we were just giving Bert a hard time this morning about running a couple minutes late, and he does a fantastic job. He's usually never late. Bert, I'm not sure you've ever clocked in. Have you ever had a job where you had to clock in?
I have had some jobs where I have had to clock in, yes.
All right, so let's get on with things and introduce our guest today. That is Erin Miley. Her middle initial is S, and we've deemed her Smiley. She is the smiliest person here at AIM. She's always happy. She always serves our members with a great smile. She is a wealth of information, and we're always happy to have her on the program. She does lead our background verification process and many of our pre-hire processes. And she spends her day working with our members and helping them navigate the world of pre-hire and integration with technology and so on. Erin, good morning. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again. I love being here.
We love having you. All right, so we're going to talk about integration a little bit here, Erin. And to kick it off, maybe Nick, you can share the chart with us, the poll chart. Let's see what we have. We asked the audience, what would they exclude? And that doesn't surprise me, expense management. But I know if I was talking to an audience of CFOs alone, expense management would be in the integration process. So it might depend who's answering this poll question. But Erin, I don't know if any of these things surprise you when you look at what we would exclude for integration.
That's pretty on point. My guess was expense management as well. You have the top three there at the bottom that nobody wants to leave independent, which is
Right.
payroll, benefits, that kind of thing. So that's not surprising.
All right. Well, let's kick off with that. So when we talk about integration and technology, it's often thought of as I have to have a large, expensive HRIS system. And I know at AIM, and there's other ways to do it as well, we offer different integration technologies to assist our members. Just tell us a little bit, what's the difference between a full-blown HRIS system and some of the other integrations that we do with, let's say, for an example, an applicant tracking system like we saw maybe in the survey results there.
Yeah. So the main difference is that the full HRIS system is one system, essentially, whereas an integrated solution connects various platforms together to create a streamlined process of flow of information. So, for example, your applicant tracking system will be your connector point. And from that platform, you can connect to your background platform. You can connect to your onboarding platform. You can connect to your payroll platform. What it's doing is it's creating systems integrations to take away the mundane work so that your focus can create value for your organization. So that's kind of the big difference in for smaller organizations, mid-sized organizations who can't afford those thousands of dollars HRIS systems on an annual basis. These smaller integrated platforms that they can connect together makes more sense for them. And it creates that efficiency that some of those smaller to mid-sized organizations don't normally get.
So one of the things I know that I hear, particularly in our roundtables, is many people want that full-blown HRIS system. And those are wonderful systems. I've had them in the past when I was leading organizations in HR. But the challenge that sometimes occurs with that is they're so focused on integrating everything that you give up sometimes the practicality of a very specific tool. Let's just use applicant tracking as an example. So I might buy into any large HR platform, but the applicant tracking tool may not be as effective as it would be as a standalone product. That's what they focus on is applicant tracking, and it gives you more capability, but less integration. What is it that, from your point of view, building that, what should people take into account when making a decision where to go or what to choose?
So I liken it to what's going to create the least amount of work for me as the user. Um, so a good applicant tracking system, if it's an independent system that you're looking for, will be able to push to multiple job boards efficiently for you. So you're not going to post to every single one yourself. It's going to create integrations with those job boards that maybe you've purchased blocks of postings from. It's going to centralize your applicant pool so that everybody's coming into one place. You're not having to go to LinkedIn. You're not having to go to Indeed. You're coming to your one platform. It's going to create reporting capabilities so you can track if you are spending money, where are your quality people coming from? Should you be spending that money? And it's going to create some great reporting for your executive teams. Your leadership teams love to see it. So you're going to have time to fill reports. You're going to have conversion rate reports. It's going to streamline that process and create efficiencies with the least amount of work on your part. And that's what if I go out to shop, that would be what I would be looking for. How do I create that least amount of work?
And I think the other piece to that is some HRIS systems are what we'll call open flat platforms, where you can plug in other systems to it. And then other HRIS systems are closed platforms where you really can't integrate anything else to it. And therefore, knowing exactly the tools you want to use versus I'm forced to use the tools of a particular system is what you want to consider. There's no right or wrong method, but I like your first choice is what's going to create the least amount of work for me. All right, 30 seconds here before we close up, Erin. Is there anything we need to consider about the tools that we're using as far as collecting, storing, retaining data that's important for our listeners to know about?
Yeah, so in a couple of our roundtables lately, we've been talking about compliance. So there are very specific laws around record retention, information, people data that you're getting, and how long you can store it, where you can store it, how you can store it. Also, whose responsibility is it? Is it HR? Is it IT? Depending on how you store your data, your IT department may have an involvement on security processes in place for storing that data. However, it really falls to the HR individual to follow what the laws are for the record retention. So if you aren't aware of that and you need help deciphering what those laws and record retention and record keeping looks like for your state or area, we have online resources available here at AIM that can help you determine that. So feel free to give us a call and we can help you out.
All right. Well, Erin, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have an idea who you want to win the Super Bowl? Do you really care?
Yay, sports.
Yay, sports. All right. I think one of those two teams is going to win. You're right, Erin. Thank you for joining us. Bert, I want to say thanks. I was watching you offline. I saw your dog walking around in the background, but good to know you're in the office working hard this morning. You had us all fooled.
Exactly.
All right, Nick, I can't wait to see you all tomorrow. Bert, we'll see you then in the morning. Erin, I know you'll be there. If people have any follow-up questions. Until then, be good to each other. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link, aimea.org/This Week at Work, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment, like LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you are. And you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.